Grammar time. Language of processed text. Pay attention to the following possible titles of text. How to make a phone call is a procedure. How a cell phone works is a process. How a satellite processes signal is a process. How audio files are converted is a process. How to convert audio files is a procedure. Now, pay attention to the following purposes of text. It shows how to do something is a procedure. It shows how something happens is a process. It is driven by natural forces is a process. It is driven by human is a procedure. It describes some separate steps is a procedure. It describes a continuous flow is a process. Therefore, a procedure consists of steps. Meanwhile, a process consists of flows. The language devices in a process text are active voice and passive voice. In active voice, the subject is doing the acting. In passive voice, the subject is being acted upon, receiving the action. We use active voice when we talk mostly in informal or daily speaking. For example, in an expression, I haven't made a call. The next one is when we want to show the agents and the action. For example, in the expression, the mobile sends the text message. And the last is when we want to show procedure. For example, you lift the handset from the cradle. Meanwhile, we use passive voice when we talk informal or scientific speech. For example, in the expression, the call hasn't been made. And the next one is when we want to emphasize the actions or the agent. For example, the text message is sent. And the last, we want to show process. For example, in the expression, the cradle is lifted from the handset. This is an example of procedure with the inclusion of process. You notice here that in the first step, first, lift the handset from the cradle. It is a procedure. In the second step, then, dial a number and it is transmitted. There are combinations of procedure and process. In the third step, afterwards, the switch rises and the telephone are connected to the routing network. This is a process. In the fourth step, finally, the sound of a dial tone confirms the connection. You are ready to start your phone conversation. In the fourth step, these are combinations of process and procedure. Let's see here. All procedures and processes are written in active voice. Active voice, you lift the handset from the cradle. In active voice, the subject is you. The verb is lift. And passive voice. The handset is lifted from the cradle. In passive voice, the subject becomes the handset. The verb form becomes is lifted. Active voice, in the next procedure, the sound of dial tone confirms the connection. In active voice, the subject is the sound of dial tone, and the verb is confirms. And passive voice. The connection is confirmed through the sound of dial tone. In passive voice, the subject becomes the connection, the verb form becomes is confirmed. Active voice, you dial a number. In active voice, the subject is you and the verb is dial. And passive voice, a number is dialed. In passive voice, the subject becomes a number. The verb form becomes is. Active voice, you are ready to begin a phone conversation. In active voice, the subject is you. The verb is are. And passive voice, a phone conversation is ready to begin. In passive voice, the subject becomes a phone conversation. The verb form becomes is. You see here that the active voice sentences are transformed into passive voice. Now, all procedures and processes are written in passive voice. Let's practice. Let's check your answer. Remember the language devices in a process text: active voice and passive voice. Ask your teacher for more examples on changing active to passive voice.